Ryan was one of the most successful businessmen in the city. His life was full of luxury, cars, and endless meetings. But despite all his success, he lived a life of rules and control. He liked things planned, organized, and predictable. Nothing in his world was ever a surprise. Myra worked in Ryan's mansion. She was quiet, hardworking, and always respectful. She kept the house spotless and made sure everything ran smoothly. Ryan barely noticed her most days. She was just part of the background, like the polished floors and shining windows. One rainy evening, Ryan returned home earlier than usual. He had finished an important deal and was unusually restless. The mansion was silent, the kind of silence that made small noises seem louder than they actually were. Myra was in the kitchen, preparing tea. She glanced at him, careful not to disturb his mood. "Good evening, sir," she said softly, placing the tray on the counter. "Evening," Ryan replied, distracted. His mind was elsewhere, thinking about numbers, profits, and the next deal. He hardly noticed the tea. Myra hesitated. Something about the way he looked today made her nervous. She had been carrying a secret, one she thought she could keep hidden forever. But the tension in the air made it harder to ignore. "Sir, may I speak for a moment?" she asked. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to keep it steady. Ryan raised his eyebrows, curious but wary. "What is it?" Myra took a deep breath. "It's about my situation." "Something personal?" Ryan frowned. He wasn't used to personal matters in his carefully planned life. "Go on," he said, his tone sharp but not unkind. I am expecting twins," Myra said, her hands clasped tightly. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I wasn't sure how." For a moment, Ryan's mind went blank. Twins? The word hung in the air. He had never imagined that something like this could happen in his perfectly controlled life. He felt a strange mix of shock and disbelief. "Twins?" He repeated. "You mean 2 children?" "Yes, sir. Twins," Myra confirmed, her eyes steady despite her fear. Ryan walked to the window, staring out at the pouring rain. He didn't know what to say. He had always thought of life as simple: work, rules, control. Now, it had become unpredictable. Myra waited, hoping for some sign that he would understand. But Ryan only turned back to her with a conflicted expression. This is complicated," he said finally. "I know, sir. I just wanted you to know," Myra said quietly. She felt a wave of relief, just saying it out loud. Ryan nodded slowly. He walked past her, silent for a few moments. He had never dealt with a situation like this. His thoughts raced. What would people say? How would this affect his reputation? Could he even handle something so unexpected? Myra tried not to show her worry. She had hoped for support, but she understood that this news was heavy. Still, she held on to a small hope that Ryan might see beyond the surface and care about what was truly important. Ryan finally spoke, his voice calm but distant. "I need time to think." Myra nodded. "Of course, sir. I will wait." That night, the mansion felt different. The usual quiet seemed heavier, charged with unspoken questions. Ryan couldn't sleep. He kept turning the idea over in his mind. Twins, a new life, responsibility. It was all so foreign to him. By morning, the air between them was tense but silent. Myra went about her duties, careful not to disturb the man who held her fate in his hands. Ryan, meanwhile, stared out of his office window, the city below bustling as always. But for him, nothing felt normal. Something inside him had shifted, and he didn't know if he was ready for the change. For both of them, life had taken an unexpected turn, and no one knew what the next days would bring. The next morning, Ryan woke up earlier than usual. The mansion was quiet. except for the faint sound of birds outside. He sat on the edge of his bed, thinking. Myra's words from the night before kept echoing in his mind. Twins. 2 little lives depending on choices he had never imagined having to make. He dressed quickly and walked to the kitchen. Mira was already there, humming softly as she arranged breakfast. When she saw him, she paused, unsure how he would react. "Good morning, sir," she said cautiously. Ryan nodded. "Good morning, Myra." His voice was calm, but his mind was far from it. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat at the table, staring at the steam rising from the cup. "I have been thinking," he said finally, looking at her, "about what you told me yesterday." Myra's heart beat faster. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She hoped for understanding, but she did not know what to expect. "I don't know what the right decision is," Rain continued. "This changes everything in my life." Myra remained silent. She knew he needed time to process. She could only hope he would choose compassion over fear. Rain leaned back in his chair. "I have never been a man to deal with surprises. My life is planned, but maybe life has its own plan, one I cannot control." His voice softened. "I need to know if you are ready to face this alone if I decide to step back." Mira shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I cannot do this alone. I never wanted to do it alone. I needed you to know, to be part of this." Rand studied her carefully. There was honesty in her eyes, a strength he had not noticed before. She was brave, and her courage touched him in a way he could not explain. "I need to be fair," he said slowly. "To you and to the children. I cannot make promises I am not sure I can keep. But I can promise to think and to listen. That is the first step." Mira felt a small wave of relief. It was not a clear yes, but it was hope. And for her, hope was enough for now. Over the next few days, Rand watched Myra differently. He noticed the small ways she cared for the mansion, the way she moved quietly but confidently through the rooms. He saw her determination and patience. It made him question the judgments he had always carried about people who were not part of his world. One afternoon, while walking through the garden, Rand stopped and looked at her. "Myra, I need to know. These children, are they strong? Healthy?" Mira smiled gently. "Yes, sir. They are healthy and strong. I visit the doctor regularly. Everything is going well." Rand nodded. The words brought a strange feeling he had never felt before. Responsibility, concern, a small spark of connection. That evening, he called his assistant and asked for a list of schools and childcare options in the city. He even considered hiring additional help to ensure Myra had support. It was a small step, but for Rand, it was huge. He was beginning to imagine a life he had never allowed himself to imagine. A life with care, concern, and new beginnings. Mira noticed the change too. She felt a mixture of hope and nervousness. Rand's attention, though quiet, was different. He was no longer distant. He asked questions, offered small gestures, and listened more carefully. It gave her courage to believe that perhaps he could be part of their lives after all. One night, as Myra prepared for bed, she thought about the future. She did not know what challenges lay ahead, but she knew she was not alone. Ram was starting to see beyond the world of rules and business. He was starting to see life in a new way, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. Days passed and Rand found himself thinking more and more about Myra and the twins. He had always believed that his life was complete with wealth and control. Yet now, the idea of new lives depending on him made him see the world differently. One morning, Rand decided to visit the doctor with Myra. She had initially protested, saying it was unnecessary, but he insisted. He wanted to see for himself that the twins were healthy. The clinic was quiet and bright. A kind doctor greeted them and checked the twins' progress. Rayan watched the screen as two tiny shapes moved, tiny hands and feet pressing against the walls of their world. Myra's hand trembled slightly, and Rayan reached out to hold it. "They look perfect," the doctor said with a smile. "Healthy and strong." Rayan felt a warmth he had never experienced before. He turned to Myra. "They are strong. Just like you," he said softly. Myra blinked, surprised by his words. She had never heard such sincerity from him. On the drive back, the air between them was different. Rayan did not speak much, but his silence was comforting rather than distant. Myra noticed the small gestures, how he offered her the water bottle, how he waited patiently while she buckled her seatbelt back at the mansion. Rayan began to notice other small things. Myra's favorite flowers in the garden, the way she always cleaned the windows carefully, how she hummed while working. He realized that life was not just about rules and wealth. It was about care, attention, and connection. One afternoon, a small problem arose in the mansion. The main generator failed, and the house lost power. Myra tried to fix it herself, but struggled. Rayan, noticing her efforts, stepped in. Together, they managed to restart it. "Thank you for helping, sir," Myra said, smiling despite the stress. "Of course," Rayan replied, smiling back. "I realize now that some things are easier when you don't face them alone." That evening, Myra prepared tea, and Rayan joined her in the kitchen. They sat quietly, sipping and watching the rain fall outside. It was a peaceful moment, one that felt strangely familiar, yet completely new. "You know," Rayan said, "I never thought I would care about anything outside my business. But now, I feel responsible. I feel connected." Myra looked at him, her eyes soft. "It is natural, sir. When you care, even a little, everything changes. Life becomes more alive." Rayan nodded. "Yes, alive. I like that feeling." From that day, Rayan began taking more steps to prepare for the twins. He hired a small team to help Myra around the mansion and even bought a few essentials for the babies. Myra was careful not to let him overdo it, but she appreciated the thoughtfulness behind each gesture. One evening, Rayan found himself in the nursery Myra had begun preparing. Soft pastel walls, tiny clothes neatly folded, a small cradle in the corner. He ran his fingers over the smooth wood and imagined the baby sleeping there. A strange feeling of pride and anticipation filled him. Myra entered quietly, watching him. "They will be safe here," she said softly. Rayan turned to her, a smile forming. "Yes, and I want to make sure they always feel loved." Myra felt a warmth in her heart. For the first time, she realized that Rayan was not just a distant, controlled man. He was capable of change, capable of care. And perhaps, just perhaps, he could be more than an observer in their lives. That night, as Myra prepared for bed, she thought about the future. The days ahead would not be easy, but the bond that was forming between them gave her hope. She believed that together, they could face anything and that the twins would grow up in a world filled with love, care, and unexpected joy. Rayan, meanwhile, sat in his office, staring at the city lights. He realized that life was no longer about control. It was about moments, connections, and choices that mattered. And he was ready to take the first step toward a life that was richer than money could ever make it. The days passed quickly in the mansion. Myra continued preparing for the twins, arranging their nursery and reading books about babies. Rayan, though still busy with his work, found himself visiting the nursery more often. He would peek at the tiny clothes or listen to the soft lullabies Myra hummed one morning. As Myra was arranging the baby clothes, the mansion gates opened unexpectedly. A sleek car pulled in and a young woman stepped out. She looked familiar yet strange to Rayan. He had not expected any visitors that day. "Good morning," the woman said with a polite smile. She carried a small leather bag. "I am Amira, an assistant from your business office. I believe I was asked to deliver some documents to Mr. Ryan." Ryan nodded, curiosity rising. "Yes, come in. I will see the documents in a moment." Mira, observing quietly, felt a small twinge of nervousness. She was not sure why, but there was something about the woman that made her uneasy. Amira entered the mansion gracefully. She had a confident air and moved as if she had been in grand houses before. Ryan offered her tea, and she accepted. They sat in the living room as she handed him the documents. "Thank you," Ryan said, skimming through the papers. "Everything seems in order." Amira's eyes flickered to Myra. She nodded politely, but there was a subtle sharpness in her gaze. Ryan noticed nothing, too absorbed in the reports. After a few minutes, Amira spoke again. "I hope you don't mind, but I also wanted to meet the person who manages the mansion so well. I have heard very good things." Myra's hands tightened slightly. "Thank you," she said softly. Ryan watched the interaction carefully. There was a slight tension in the room, but he could not pinpoint it. He decided to step in. "Myra has been managing the house perfectly. I trust her completely." Amira smiled politely but turned back to Ryan. "Of course, sir. I just wanted to ensure everything is running smoothly. Business and personal matters often intersect, and it's good to know who manages both sides." Ryan nodded. "I understand. Thank you for your concern." After Amira left, the mansion felt unusually quiet. Myra sensed a shadow of worry. "Sir, do you think she meant anything by that?" Ryan shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but I do know that we must focus on what is important now, preparing for the twins and making sure everything is ready." Despite his words, Ryan found himself thinking about the visitor. Something about her presence stirred feelings he had not expected. He realized that while he was learning to care and change, the world around him could bring surprises and challenges. The next day, Ryan took Mira to a local store to buy essentials for the babies. They walked through aisles filled with tiny clothes, toys, and blankets. Mira's eyes sparkled as she touched each item. Ryan noticed her joy and felt a warmth in his heart. "I want them to have everything they need," Myra said softly, her hands brushing over a soft blanket. "They will," Ryan replied, smiling. "And they will have love too. More than they can ever imagine." As they returned to the mansion, Ryan began to understand that life's surprises were not always unwelcome. Some brought challenges, yes, but others brought happiness and growth. Myra had changed his life in ways he could not have predicted. That night, as Myra prepared for bed, she looked around the nursery. Everything was in place, and the twins' arrival felt less daunting than before. She thought about Ryan and the changes she had seen in him. He was no longer the distant man she had met weeks ago. He was learning to care, to act, and to embrace the unexpected. Ryan, in his office, stared at the city lights. The memory of the visitor lingered, but it was overshadowed by the excitement of what was to come. The twins' arrival would mark the beginning of a new chapter, one that would bring challenges, joy, and lessons neither he nor Myra could yet imagine. Life in the mansion was no longer predictable. And for the first time, Ryan welcomed the uncertainty, knowing that some surprises were meant to change everything for the better. The mansion was alive with activity. Myra moved carefully from room to room, arranging tiny clothes, soft blankets, and small toys. Every corner of the nursery reflected her care and attention. She hummed softly as she worked, imagining the twins' laughter filling the rooms. Ryan watched from the doorway, noticing how she moved with such patience and love. He had hired a small team to help with the house, but Mira remained at the center of everything. Her dedication and calm strength impressed him more than anything else. "Do you need help?" Ryan asked, stepping into the nursery. Myra shook her head. "I am almost done." But thank you for offering." Rayan smiled. He knew she was capable, but he also wanted to be part of this journey, not just an observer. He began helping, carefully folding tiny socks and arranging clothes by color. It was a small task, but it made him feel closer to the life growing inside Myra. That evening, they sat in the living room with cups of tea. Mira's hands were tired from the day's work, but her eyes shone with anticipation. "Sir," she began softly, "thank you for everything you are doing. I know this is not easy for you, but it means a lot to me." Rayan looked at her. "I realize now that life is more than work and control. Seeing you care for the twins, it has changed me. I want to be part of their lives. I want to help, to support, to make sure they feel loved." Myra's eyes glistened. For the first time, she felt that Rayan truly understood what mattered. Not wealth or reputation, but care, love, and responsibility. Over the next few days, Rayan became more involved. He asked Myra about everything: nutrition, appointments, and the twins' needs. He even attended a few prenatal classes with her, learning how to help during the delivery and afterward. Myra noticed the effort he was putting in and felt grateful. One afternoon, while shopping for baby supplies, Mira and Rayan walked through the store aisles. Tiny clothes hung neatly, and soft toys filled the shelves. Myra picked up a small stuffed bear and handed it to Rayan. "Do you want to choose something for them?" she asked with a smile. Rayan nodded thoughtfully. He picked a small pair of shoes, dark blue with little stars embroidered on them. "These will be for when they take their first steps," he said softly. Myra smiled. "They will look perfect." On the drive back, they were quiet, each lost in thought. Rayan realized that the upcoming days would not be easy. There would be sleepless nights, responsibilities, and challenges. But he also understood that this was a chance to build something meaningful. Back at the mansion, Mira prepared the nursery for the night. Soft music played from a small speaker, and the room smelled faintly of lavender. Rayan watched her, noticing how carefully she arranged everything. He felt a deep admiration for her strength and grace. "I promise, Mira," he said quietly, "I will do everything I can to be there for you and the twins. I will not step away. This is our family now, and I will protect it." Mira looked at him, her heart full of hope. "Thank you, sir. Your words mean more than I can say. Together, we can make this work." "I believe that." That night, the mansion was quiet except for the soft hum of the music in the nursery. Mira prepared for bed, her mind full of dreams about the twins. Rayan stayed in his office for a while, staring at the city lights. He realized that life was no longer about plans or control. It was about moments, care, and promises kept as he finally turned off the lights. He thought about the future. Challenges would come, but he felt ready. With Mira and the twins, he was learning that love and responsibility could change a person in ways nothing else could. And for the first time in his life, Rayan felt that he was truly ready for a new beginning. The weeks passed quickly, and the mansion was filled with anticipation. Mira continued preparing for the twins, making sure every corner of the nursery was perfect. She folded tiny clothes, washed soft blankets, and arranged the cribs with care. Every small detail mattered to her, and Rayan noticed her dedication every day. Rayan himself had changed a great deal. He spent more time at the mansion, checking on Myra and helping whenever he could. He asked questions, made small gestures of care, and even practiced reading bedtime stories aloud. It was strange for him at first, but over time, it became natural. One afternoon, Mira sat by the nursery window, feeling the twins move gently. Rayan entered quietly, holding 2 small pairs of socks. "I thought they might need these," he said softly, placing them beside her. Myra smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you, sir. They will need everything, but your help means more than all the clothes in the world." Rayan nodded, watching her carefully. He could see the strength it took for her to carry the twins, and he felt a deep respect for her. "You are very strong, Mira," he said quietly. "I don't know if I could do what you are doing." Mira shook her head gently. "We all have strength we don't know until it is needed. You will see it in yourself too, sir, when the time comes." Rand smiled faintly. He wondered if she was right. Perhaps the twins would teach him more about life and love than anything else ever had. The days grew shorter and the nights longer. Myra's discomfort increased as the twins grew, and Rand made sure she rested whenever she could. He arranged soft cushions for her to sit and brought her warm drinks. He began spending his evenings reading to her, sometimes from books about babies, sometimes from stories meant to make her laugh. One evening, Rand walked past the nursery and noticed Mira humming softly to herself. He peered in and saw her gently arranging the toys on a small shelf. Something in that moment touched him deeply. He realized how much life could change when someone you cared about needed you. The next morning, Rand surprised Mira with a small gift. It was a set of tiny picture frames, each one meant to hold the first photographs of the twins. Mira accepted them with a gentle smile. "They will be memories we can keep forever," Rand said softly. Myra nodded, feeling a warmth in her heart. "Yes, sir. And we will make many happy memories together." As the days went on, Rand also began thinking about the future. He wanted to be prepared for every possibility, from late-night feedings to the first steps and first words. He discussed plans with Myra, making sure they were both ready for the arrival of the twins. One rainy evening, Mira felt the first signs that the twins were ready to arrive. She called Rand immediately. His response was calm but filled with concern. He gathered their essentials, arranged transportation, and stayed by her side the entire way to the hospital. On the drive, Mira held his hand tightly. "I am nervous, sir," she admitted. Rand squeezed her hand. "So am I," he said honestly. "But we will face this together. You are not alone." At the hospital, the medical staff prepared for the delivery. Rand remained close, offering quiet words of encouragement. Mira took deep breaths, feeling the twins move inside her, ready to join the world. Rand watched her carefully. He had never imagined he could feel such concern and care for someone else's life. The anticipation, the fear, and the hope all came together in one overwhelming moment. Hours passed and Mira focused on each breath, each movement. Rand stayed beside her, silently promising to be there for every step of their journey. The waiting was hard, but they faced it together, knowing that soon their lives would change forever. The hospital room was filled with soft light and quiet anticipation. Mira lay on the bed, her hands gripping the sheets, feeling the final moments before the twins arrived. Rand stood beside her, holding her hand firmly, his heart racing with both worry and excitement. "You are very strong, Mira," Rand said quietly. "I am right here with you." Myra smiled, despite her discomfort. "Thank you, sir. I feel braver because you are with me." The hours passed slowly, and the medical team worked efficiently. Myra focused on each breath, listening to the comforting voice of Rand as he stayed close. She could feel the twins moving, almost as if they knew their father was nearby. Finally, after a long and tiring process, the first cry filled the room. A tiny baby boy, healthy and strong, was placed in Myra's arms. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at him. Rand, standing close, felt a wave of emotion he had never experienced before. "He's beautiful," Myra whispered. Rand nodded, his eyes fixed on the small, fragile life in her arms. He could not stop staring at the baby, noticing the tiny fingers and the perfect little face. "Yes," he said softly. "He is perfect." Minutes later, the second twin arrived, a little girl, equally healthy. Myra held them both carefully, her heart full of love. Rand leaned closer, feeling a deep connection he had never known was possible. For the first time, he realized that life was no longer about rules, control, or business. It was about love, care, and the bonds that grew between people. He watched Mira gently rock the twins, whispering soft words and humming a lullaby. "She is so tiny," Myra said softly, gazing at her daughter. "She is perfect," Ryan repeated. His voice held a quiet reverence. He reached out slowly and touched the baby's hand, feeling the delicate grip. In that moment, he felt a connection that went beyond words, a bond that tied him to Myra and the twins forever. Over the next few hours, Ryan stayed close, assisting wherever he could. He held the babies, helped Mira with feeding, and marveled at every small movement. He even began to talk softly to them, promising to be their protector and guide in the world. Mira looked at him, noticing the change in him. The man who had once been distant and controlled was now fully present, attentive, and gentle. She felt a deep gratitude and relief. For the first time, she knew that the twins would grow up with someone who truly cared. As night fell, the room became quiet, except for the soft breathing of the newborns. Ryan sat beside Mira, holding her hand. "I never knew life could feel like this," he admitted. "Seeing them, seeing you, it has changed me." Myra smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the lamps. "It changes everyone, sir. Love has that power." Ryan nodded. He looked at the twins again, their tiny eyes blinking up at him. A sense of responsibility and warmth filled his heart. He realized that this was only the beginning of a journey of care, protection, and shared happiness before leaving the hospital. Ryan promised Mira that he would do everything to support her and the twins. He would be there for every step of their growth, every first smile, every first word, and every small milestone. Mira held the twins close as they left the hospital, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and joy. Ryan walked beside her, carrying the supplies, feeling a quiet pride and happiness he had never known before. For the first time, all three of them, Ryan, Mira, and the twins, were beginning a new life together. It was a life full of hope, love, and endless possibilities. And for Ryan, it was the start of a transformation that would stay with him forever. Back at the mansion, life had changed completely. The nursery was filled with tiny clothes, soft blankets, and the gentle sounds of the twins' coos. Mira moved carefully from one crib to the other, soothing each baby and adjusting their blankets. Every corner of the room reflected her love and care. Ryan watched from the doorway, feeling a warmth he had never known before. He had never imagined that holding tiny lives in his hands could bring such a sense of purpose. He stepped forward and gently picked up the little boy. The baby's tiny fingers curled around his thumb, and in that moment, Ryan felt a bond he could not put into words. "They are incredible," he whispered to Myra. Myra smiled, her eyes soft with happiness. "Yes, they are. And they are lucky to have you too, sir." Ryan shook his head slightly, smiling. "No, Myra, I am the lucky one. I have never felt anything like this before." Over the next few days, Ryan adjusted to life in the mansion with the twins. He learned to feed them, change their clothes, and even rock them to sleep. Myra guided him patiently, showing him the little routines that kept the babies comfortable and happy. He listened carefully and followed her instructions, eager to be the best father he could be. One afternoon, Myra and Ryan sat in the living room while the twins slept. The soft sunlight filled the room, and the mansion felt warmer than it ever had before. "I never thought life could change so much," Ryan said quietly. "But now, I cannot imagine it any other way." Myra nodded. "Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes the surprises are hard, but other times, they are the most beautiful things we could ever hope for." Ryan looked at the sleeping twins and felt a deep sense of responsibility. He realized that wealth and business achievements could never give him the joy he felt now. Caring for these tiny lives and supporting Myra had shown him the true meaning of family. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between them grew stronger. Ryan and Myra worked together seamlessly, sharing responsibilities and celebrating small victories. The twins' first smiles, first kiss, and tiny movements filled the mansion with laughter and joy. One evening, while putting the babies to sleep, Ryan noticed Myra looking tired but happy. He took her hand gently. "You have been amazing, Myra. I don't know what I would do without you." Myra shook her head, smiling softly. "We are a team, sir. That is what makes it work. We care for each other, and we care for them." Ryan nodded. "Yes, and I promise I will always be here for all of you. No matter what comes, I will protect this family." Myra felt a sense of relief and happiness. She had worried that Ryan might step back or stay distant, but now she knew that he was fully committed. The twins had brought them together, and their shared love and responsibility had created a bond stronger than anything else. In the following months, the mansion was filled with laughter, soft cries, and the sounds of daily life. Ryan attended every milestone, and Myra continued guiding him. Together, they learned and grew, discovering the joys and challenges of raising twins. The city outside continued its busy rhythm, but inside the mansion, life had found a new rhythm, one of love, care, and togetherness. Ryan, Myra, and the twins had become a true family, united not only by circumstance but by choice and heart. As the sun set over the mansion, Ryan held the twins close, Myra by his side. He realized that life's greatest surprises could be the most beautiful, teaching lessons of love, patience, and connection. And in that quiet, warm moment, he knew that this was just the beginning of their happy journey together. The mansion, once a place of control and silence, was now a home filled with love, laughter, and hope for the future. Together, they would face every challenge, celebrate every joy, and grow stronger as a family.